What I'd like to do now is dive right into library maintenance, and Jill is going to cover most of that today. One thing that I'll say before she begins is that, here you go, is that MusicMaster is based on something that really isn't offered in any other music scheduler. It's really very handy for classical music, and I think Chris touched on it a little bit with unique fields in your database. MusicMaster offers the custom database, and so hopefully all of you are familiar with that. But the beauty about that is that your database is custom to you. The structure is not finite. It's not a preconceived song card that everyone has to work with. Chris could have a totally different database than Bettina does. They could have different fields, different needs. He could have some sort of need that's important to Austin, while she has some sort of field that's important to Cologne. So, am I right? Cologne? Okay. And so I think that's the beauty of our software at the base level, is that you can have any kind of field that you need in MusicMaster. There are other schedulers that could give you text fields. What we give you are fields that you can employ in other parts of the software. Keywords where you can separate by, attribute fields where you can apply codes and rules and things like that. One of the things, and she'll cover that, but one of the things that I'd like you to do today is if that's new to you, if that concept is new, or if you haven't thought about it too much, think about some of the fields that you might like to add to your database, or fields that you might like to use that you may already have and repurpose. Because that's a really important part of the software. It really is what affords you other things, layout changes, rules, that kind of thing. And she's going to cover a bit of that with library maintenance.
Did you read my outline? I mean, I think that was the first 10 minutes of the
Is that right? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I really want to start and take a lead off of that, because one of the things that really is so critical for the classical folks is having all of the data that they want and having it in a way that's meaningful to them. So the question becomes, what do you want to do? And that's what I want you to think about in this particular section. What is it that you want to accomplish at the end of the day? Do you want the composer birth date in there because you're going to do something with it? You want it there for handy reference? Either way. But what's the reason? We don't want you to put stuff in your database just for the fact that you can stick stuff in your database. You're probably too busy for that. So the question becomes, what is important to you and what can you use that for? And I want to actually just leapfrog here right away. I don't believe PRPD registration is open yet. Am I correct on that? I know some of you got here before. So I'm not sure it's open yet, but what I can tell you is that tomorrow there is going to be a session at 10:30 called The Power of the PD to Create Sustainable Revenue. You're thinking, oh, that sounds pretty interesting. Do I know what it's about? No. All I know is what that title says. And I read that title and I thought, MusicMaster can do that. MusicMaster can help you do that a lot, because if you set up your database well, we're gonna talk about this afternoon some ways that you can be instrumental in creating sustainable revenue for your radio station, or your stream, or your concept. So when you think about your database, you have to think about what's important to you, what's needed. So does anybody play slightly different music when the fund drive comes around? Anna's laughing, so that's a good sign. Now, what I mean by this is, it's stuff you play during the rest of the time, but do you maybe play certain pieces more often during the fund drive? Yeah, I got some yeses. Jennifer, do you actually play any local music by locally recorded organizations? Do you have someone? That's what I thought. Do you code for that? So you got a category for it. Okay, that's okay. So fund drives, local performances, that's the kind of area I want you to be thinking about. And Drew is right. I don't know where he disappeared to. Drew is right. If we talk about something and you go, oh my gosh, I would love to have a field where I could check it off and say, that's a local performance. Or maybe it's an attribute that we add and say, that's a piece I want to play during a fund drive. But Drew and Reiner and I were talking about what we were going to talk about today, and we came to the decision that the library is the basis of the pyramid. And what we're going to talk about, we're going to build on that. And so if you don't have that good, solid field list that does what you want, some of the things we might show you later are going to be more difficult. Maybe not impossible, just more difficult. So now you've got the field that's a local performance. Now you can say, I want to play them. I could do a whole special where I just play many hours of that. They're the pieces I want to play in the fun drive. Gives you an opportunity to do that kind of stuff. So I want to show you this database here. And one of the first things I want to tell you about this database is that I made it. It's colored the way I want it to be colored. Stuff is named the way I want it to be named. The info bar's on the left because that's where I left it. Everything you're going to see is customizable. It's not that you have to leave it this way. But what I want to just show you very briefly is under fields. And I'm going to put this into alphabetical order here so you can kind of see some of the things I got going on here. Composer birth date and death date. I know someone mentioned they had the two fields for composer. I think it was you, David. The composer and then the composer with the last name. So you got it both different ways. Again, do you need that? It depends on what you want to do. A lot of people find that helpful because now if you want to sort alphabetically, Dvorak goes in the Ds where you would expect him to be. So, as you look down this list, you're going to see a field for fun drive. Right above it, you see a field for form. Form? What the heck is that? Well, is it a solo? Is it a small chamber? That was important to me when I built my database. I wanted to know how the music sounded, and I wanted a special place to have that. And so when you're building the database, do I have easy things like musical period, nationality? Sure. Opus, orchestra, pronunciations, those kinds of things. Honestly, the whole pronunciation thing, that was one of the biggest things when I started talking to folks like you when I joined MusicMaster. What? You're going to put a field in for every pronunciation? Where do I sign up? Oh, wait a minute. I get to talk to you and you know what classical music is? Where do I sign up? It was crazy because I will tell you, there are software packages out there specifically designed for classical music that will not do what MusicMaster does, which is create the database that has exactly the fields in it that you need. So again, please use one of your note sheets. If we're talking about something you go, oh my gosh, I need a field to do that, please jot it down. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at your database to see what we can do already right now today. If not, then we'll make arrangements to get that added for you so that you have that capability and can start to use it. The big thing here is to remember that your database is that foundation. And so once you have all of those fields in it, they may not be fields that you use right away. They may be fields that you simply build in moving forward. Like at some point, I really want to do this, not right now. So you've got all of these fields in your database, and now the question becomes, how am I going to get the information in that field? How am I going to update it? What's the most useful, fast way to do that? And there's definitely a couple of quick little things that I would like to show you. And then I'm actually going to have Reiner come up and talk about these wonderful user scripts. And we'll have Miriam join him and talk about some of the fun stuff that they do with that. So I have some different designs. This is one I call adding pieces. But if you have not done some things, I mean, a lot of times you have the CD that has the 4 tracks on it. So you always have your pointer column. This is the one that is active at this particular point. If I add one song to the database and fill in all the appropriate information, like the conductor, the orchestra, the composer, the record company, the spine number, maybe you do your library by ascension number, you fill all that in, things that aren't going to change. You can then copy all that. So you can hit your red plus sign, and then you've got clone the fields from the active song. So somebody mentioned data entry can be painful. That's one way to speed it up, because you enter it once and you're done, and now you say, okay, there's 4 tracks, 4 movements, 4 whatever, 10, 15, it's Christmas coming. Now I can say, I'm going to add it once. Now I go back and say, well, I got 3 more versions of that. I'm going to clone those fields. And then essentially what happens is all of that pertinent information is duplicated, now you go in and change runtime, track numbers, that kind of thing. That's really one great way to do it. The other one, frankly, is my favorite. Add it once. Do you all know about Control D? It's really cool. It repeats the field above. Now, of course, if you have a blank, it repeats the field above. So it can be really nice because you can scroll down this really, really quickly. I can just hold it down. It goes right down real quick. So 2 really, really fast ways to update your data. And I want to show you one more, and then Reiner, we'll have him come up and talk about user scripts, because really it's about interesting ways to manipulate your data very quickly. And this one I love. It's called autofill. And it's this little icon here on the toolbar. And what you do is you say, hey, if I add this composer, his birth date and death date aren't going to change. His nationality is not going to change. His musical period isn't going to change. So you say, okay, if I find the composer and it matches, go ahead and fill in all that other information. And you notice that, I don't know if I probably did it too quickly. I actually have a few of these. So I've got one for conductor. If it matches the conductor, it fills in the pronunciation. If it matches the orchestra, it fills in the pronunciation. So now think about this. So David, we add the CD. We only put in the stuff that we need to. We go, I'm not going to put in the musical period. I'm not going to put all that stuff in. I know that's correct in my database. So we're all done adding all of our music. And you can right-click and go to autofill and look at it. Run all of them. So I don't even have to do this multiple times. I've set it up and said if the conductor matches, fill in that pronunciation. Orchestra matches, fill in the pronunciation. The composer matches, I got all kinds of things. And again, if you're not classical, it still applies. Gender would be the big one. Why do you have to fill in if you're coding for gender, you don't have to fill in it all the time. There probably is, even in a non-classical format, some things that would be the same all the time. And once you've set that up, you can run all of those at the same time. And then very quickly, your database is updated.